Prabhuji, because when you transfer, when you send it to Amazon, how much you tell me, I can pay that.
Okay, I'll let you know. I'll after we're finished here, I'll look.
Hmm.
That'll be very nice. Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are also paying our humble obeisances to Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for providing us this commentary and translation of Bhagavatam, and following the instructions and guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are praying to Srimati Radharani. Yadi seva vanchitasya ma yasya kripaya vayam labema sarvam prapnuma prayojanam damni Shri Bhagavat Pade Krishna sambandhi sarvam cha yadi na jani mahe tutam ashtadashasu sahasreshu shlokanam Bhagavat oktishu radharanim navindamatada nishphalam Bhagavat adhyayanam radhikaya kripam vina vyartasyat sarva parishrama. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy Dham and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Radharani within the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study of Srimad Bhagavatam has been pointless. Without the mercy of Srimati Radharani, all our efforts are in vain. So we are continuing from Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 28, Purañjana becomes a woman in the next life, text 56. Pancharamam navadvaram ekapalam trikostakam satkulam panchavipanam pancha prakriti stridavam. In that city, the material body, there are 5 gardens, 9 gates, 1 protector, 3 apartments, 6 families, 5 stores, 5 material elements, and 1 woman who is lord of the house. Text 57. Panchendriyartha Rama Dvarha Prananava Prabhu Tejo Banani Kostani Kulam Indriya Shangraha. My dear friend, the 5 gardens are the 5 objects of sense enjoyment, and the protector is the life air which passes through the 9 gates. The 3 apartments are the chief ingredients, fire, water, and earth. The 6 families are the aggregate total of the mind and 5 senses. Purport. The 5 senses that acquire knowledge are sight, taste, smell, sound, and touch, and these act through the 9 gates. The 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 nostrils and genitals, and 1 rectum. These holes are compared to gates in the walls of the city. The principal ingredients are earth, water, and fire, and the principal actor is the mind, which is controlled by the intelligence, buddhi. 58. Vipanastu kriya shaktir, bhuta prakritir avyaya, shaktyadhi sha pumam stvatra, pravishto navabhudyate. The 5 stores are the 5 working sensory organs. They transact their business through the combined forces of the 5 elements, which are eternal. Behind all this activity is the soul. The soul is a person and an enjoyer in reality. However, because he is now hidden within the city of the body, he is devoid of knowledge. Purport. The living entity enters the material creation with an aid of 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And thus his body is formed. Although the living entity is working from within, he is nonetheless unknown. The living entity enters the material creation, but because he is bewildered by the material energy, he appears to be hidden. The bodily conception of life is prominent because of ignorance, navabhudyate. Intelligence is described in the feminine gender, but owing to her prominence in all activities, she is described in this verse as Adishaha, the controller. The living entity lives by means of fire, water, and food grains. It is through the combination of these 3 that the body is maintained. Consequently, the body is called Prakriti, material creation. All the elements gradually combine to form flesh, bone, blood, and so on. All these appear as various apartments. It is said in the Vedas that the digested foods are ultimately divided into 3. Solid portion becomes stool, the semi-liquid portion turns into flesh, and the liquid portion turns yellow and is again divided into 3. One of these liquid portions is called urine. Similarly, the fiery portion is divided into 3. One is called bone. Out of the 5 elements, fire, water, and food grains are very important. These 3 are mentioned in the previous verse, whereas sky, ether, and air are not mentioned. This is all explained in Bhagavad Gita 13.20. Prakritim purusham chaiva vidyanadi ubhavapi vikarams cha gunams chaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Prakriti, material nature, and Purusha, the living entity, are eternal. When they both come in contact, there are different reactions and manifestations. All of them should be considered the results of the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature. Text 59. Tasmim stvam ramaya sprishto ramhamano shruta smriti tatsangad idrishim prapto dasham papiyasim prabhu. My dear friend, when you enter such a body along with the woman of material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment. Because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. Due to your material conceptions, you are placed in various miserable conditions. Purport. When a person becomes materially engrossed, he has no capacity to hear about spiritual existence. Forgetfulness of spiritual existence entangles a man more and more in material existence. Such is the result of sinful life. Various bodies are developed with the material ingredients because of different types of sinful activities. King Purañjana assumed the body of a woman, Vaidarbhi, as a result of his sinful activities. Bhagavad Gita clearly says, Shriho Vaishas Tata Sudra, that such a body is low-born. If one takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, he can be elevated to the highest perfection, even though he be low-born. One acquires lower births when one's spiritual intelligence is reduced. Text 60. Natvam vidharba duhita nayam vira suritava napatistvam puranjanya rudho nava mukheyaya. Actually, you are not the daughter of Vidarbha, nor is this man, Malayadvaja, your well-wishing husband. Nor were you the actual husband of Purañjana. You were simply captivated in this body of 9 gates. In the material world, many living entities come into contact with one another, and increasing their attachment to a particular type of body, become related as father, husband, mother, wife, etc. Actually, every living entity is a separate individual being, and it is because of his contact with matter, that he comes together with other bodies and becomes falsely related. False bodies create various associations in the name of family, community, society, and nationality. Actually, every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the living entities are overly engrossed in the material body. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, appears and gives instructions in the form of Bhagavad Gita in Vedic literatures. The Supreme Lord gives these instructions because he is the eternal friend of the living entities. His instructions are important because by them the living entity can obtain liberation from bodily engagement. As water passes down a river, many straws and grasses are carried from the shore. These straws and grasses come together in the river's current, but when the waves toss this way and that way, they are separated and carried somewhere else. Similarly, the innumerable living entities within this material world are being carried by the waves of material nature. Sometimes the waves bring them together, and they form friendships and relate to one another on a bodily basis of family, community, or nationality. Eventually, they are thrown out of association by the waves of material nature. This process has been going on since the creation of the material nature. In this regard, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur sings, Niche Mayara Vase Yache Beshe, Kacha Habudu Bubai, Jiva Krishna Dasa E Vishvasa, Karleta Aradukanai. My dear living entities, you are being carried away by the waves of material nature. Sometimes you are on the surface, sometimes you are being drowned. In this way, your eternal life is being spoiled. If you simply catch hold of Krishna and take shelter of his lotus feet, you will once again get free from all the miserable material conditions. In this verse, the words Surit, well-wisher, and Tava, your, are very significant. One's so-called husband, relative, son, father, or whatever cannot actually be a well-wisher. The only actual well-wisher is Krishna himself, as Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Suridham Sarvabhutanam. Society, friendship, love, and well-wishers are all simply results of being packed in different bodies. One should know this well and try to get out of this bodily engagement into which one is thrown birth after birth. One should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and return home back to Godhead. Text 61. Maya hyesha maya srishta yat pumam samstriham satim manyase no bhayam yadvai hamso pasya vayorgatim. Sometimes you think of yourself a man, sometimes a chaste woman, and sometimes a neutral eunuch. This is all because of the body, which is created by the illusory energy. This illusory energy is my potency, and actually both of us, you and I, are pure spiritual identities. Now just try to understand this. I'm trying to explain our factual position. Purport. The factual position of both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity is qualitatively one. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Spirit, the Supersoul, and the living entity is the individual spiritual soul. Even though both of them are original spiritual identities, the living entity forgets his identity when he comes in contact with material nature and becomes conditioned. At such a time, he identifies himself as a product of the material nature. Because of the material body, he forgets that he is the eternal Sanatana part and parcel of Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in this way. Mamai vamso jivha loke jivha bhuta sanatana. The word Sanatana is found in several places in Bhagavad Gita. Both the Lord and the living entity are Sanatana, eternal, and there is also a place known as Sanatana, beyond this material nature. The real residence of both the living entity and God is the domain of Sanatana, not this material world. The material world is the temporary external energy of the Lord, and the living entity is placed in this material world because he wanted to imitate the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this material world, he tries to enjoy his senses to his best capacity. All of the activities of the conditioned soul within this material world are perpetually taking place in different types of bodies. But when the living entity acquires developed consciousness, he should try to rectify his situation and again become a member of the spiritual world. The process by which one can return home back to Godhead is Bhakti Yoga, sometimes called Sanatana Dharma. Instead of accepting a temporary occupational duty based on the material body, one should take to the process of Sanatana Dharma or Bhakti Yoga so that he can put an end to this perpetual bondage in material bodies and return home back to Godhead. As long as human society works on the basis of false material identification, and the so-called advancements of science and philosophy are simply useless. They only serve to mislead human society. Andha yatandhar upani yamanaha. In the material world, the blind simply lead the blind. Text 62. Aham bhavanna chanyastvam, tvam evaham vichakshvahabo, na no pasyanti kavayas, chidram jatu managapi. My dear friend, I, the supersoul, and you, the individual soul, are not different in quality, for we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, you are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider this subject. Those who are actually advanced scholars, who are in knowledge, do not find any qualitative difference between you and me. Purport. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity are qualitatively one. There is no factual difference between the two. The Mayavad philosophers are again and again defeated by the illusory energy because they think that there is no separation between supersoul and individual soul, or that there is no supersoul. They are also misled in thinking that everything is the supersoul. However, those who are kavaya, learned scholars, actually know the facts. They do not commit such mistakes. They know that God and the individual soul are one in quality, but that the individual soul falls under the clutches of Maya, whereas the Supersoul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of Maya. Maya is the creation of the Supreme Lord, Maya Shrishta. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is the controller of Maya. Although one in quality with the Supreme Lord, the individual soul is under the control of Maya. Mayavadi philosophers cannot distinguish between the controller and the controlled. Okay, thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 63 on Monday. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai. Ganga Mai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan, Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Sham Kund, Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi, Bhakti Devi, Vrinda Devi ki jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari 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 Bol. Jai Shrimati Uma Devi Dasi ki jai. Hari Bol.
Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu ji ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Jai Gurudev.
Dhanyavad.
Dhanyavad Siddhi.